But when Chapel Royal Choirmaster Nathaniel Giles sanctioned the kidnap of young Thomas Clifton, it was not to sing in his choir.
Nothing in Giles's warrant says anything about acting. But when Henry Evans went into business with him, their plan was to use the impressment warrant that Giles had been given in his role as choirmaster to the Chapel Royal and use it to forcibly recruit boys to their theatre company in Blackfriars. Evans clearly thought that by associating with Giles, he could kidnap boys with impunity.
That evening at Blackfriars, Thomas Clifton's father was powerless when confronted by Henry Evans brandishing the royal impressment warrant. So Thomas remained in the dubious care of his abductors. Clifton had to leave without his son, and with a very heavy heart. I'm sure poor Clifton felt hugely anxious about the future of his only son and heir. But worse than that, he may well have been concerned that his boy's very innocence was at risk. The glamorous world of the theatre was also seedy and dangerous.
Imagine it. Young boys, many of them on the cusp of adolescence, playing adult male and female parts in plays that were full of dirty jokes and sexual innuendo, for an audience of paying people who had come every night to stare at them, night after night, in the candlelight. There's something deeply troubling there. How far were the boys sexualized in the name of entertainment?
Theatre companies were conscious and canny about what they were doing in terms of using their boy actors in female roles. It seems quite clear from both the plays that survive from the period and from comments and responses to the convention of boy actors that those boys were explicitly displayed as erotically interesting characters to the audience, both male and female.
In one of Thomas Middleton's plays, Father Hubbard's Tale, a character is told to call in at Blackfriars, where he should see a nest of boys able to ravish a man. If the boys were figured in the language of temptresses on stage, how were they treated off stage? We can't know for sure, but theatres were places on the margins, often surrounded by brothels. We can't ignore the possibility that the children were being abused.
Certainly, in some of the plays written for the boy actors, there are references to their exploitation.
You look at something like Johnson's Poetaster, and there's a character there who's called Tucker, and he has two servants who can act well, and immediately a character called Histrio, who's a theatre owner, comes up to him and says, you know, I'd like to hire those children. And Tucker replies, well, you'll have them for Engels, meaning they will be child prostitutes, effectively, if they're brought into your care. I find it very troubling.
The past is another country. We know they do things differently there. Boys in the Elizabethan period could legally marry at 14, and girls at just 12. So, of course, audiences 400 years ago would have had a very different view on things from us today. We don't know how far the average individual human heart has changed in that time. We don't know how far a child's instinctive reactions will be shaped by their moment. But I can't forget that the Blackfriars boys were children. Children forcibly taken into the dangerous and murky world of the theatre. And I do find that very disturbing.